So I'm not gonna lie, this video is probably not gonna be very long because April was not a super great reading month for me. So for the month of April, I read 7 books, which is a little low for me, but there was a lot going on. So I ended up reading 3,507 pages, which is by far my lowest amount yet. But I did have an average rating of 4.5, so that is good. I didn't read a lot, but what I was reading was good. All right, so April. April was it was a month. Let's see, I had my birthday, and honestly, I mostly just traveled a lot in April, and it wasn't like laying on the beach kind of traveling where I could get a lot of reading done. It was a lot of adventure traveling and seeing family and going out with friends and just like a lot of things that didn't leave me with a lot of downtime, and I pretty much was gone every single weekend until this weekend. So I had just so much going on that I didn't end up getting a lot of reading done. I also reread one of my favorite series, but it does tend to put me in a reading slump a little bit, and I knew that going in. So honestly, that's just kind of where we're at in April. I'm already anticipating May is going to be a lot better, but I don't have a ton of books to talk about today, so let's go ahead and get started. So the first 4 books that I read are the rest of the ACOTAR series. I read A Court of Thorns and Roses, reread it last month, and then I finished the series this month. This series always puts me in a reading slump. It is probably my second favorite series ever, right underneath Outlander. It was my favorite until I read Outlander. This is the series that really got me into reading again. It got me into BookTube and Bookstagram, and I just love this series so much, and I knew I wanted to reread it, so I reread it with a friend, and I loved it just as much as I did before. I know everybody loves A Court of Mist and Fury the most, but I really feel like A Court of Wings and Ruin is the highlight of the series. It has everything. It has the romance, and it might not have the slow burn tension that the second book has, which I thoroughly enjoy, but it has the political intrigue and the better plot, in my opinion, and still that romance that we love. So that's how I feel about that. I also really like Silver Flames. I finished that last night. I did not go into it thinking I was gonna like it the first time I read it last year, because I didn't like Nesta as a character at all, but she grows on you so much in this book, and I love Cassian, and it just ended up being like the perfect addition to this series, and I can't wait for the next one. I'm a little nervous for the next one depending on who the next book is about, but it was an enjoyable read. I took it kind of slowly, which I tend to do when I read these, which led to a lot of my lack of reading this month, was because I didn't want to read something else at the same time that I was reading this, but I just kept not wanting this to end too quickly, so I took it a little slowly, but I did read some other things. So I also read The Love Hypothesis. This is by Ali Hazelwood, and this follows our main character Olive, and she is a third-year PhD student who has a best friend who likes her ex-boyfriend, but Olive doesn't care about the ex-boyfriend at all. Like, she wants her friend to get with this guy, but her friend won't do that to Olive because she thinks that Olive is lonely. So Olive ends up trying to prove to her friend that she's over this guy, so she ends up kissing this random guy when her friend walks by, and it happens to be this really grumpy, kind of mean professor from her program, and his name is Adam, and they decide to fake date to help both of their situations out, and it spirals on from there. It's such a fun little rom-com. I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4.5 stars. It was really fun, and it honestly made me really want to read more rom-coms. I bought so many rom-coms in April. April was the month of book buying. We didn't do a ton of reading, but we did a lot of buying. So I did buy a good number of rom-coms that I am really excited to read throughout the summer. Next up, I read Uprooted. This is by Naomi Novik, and it follows our main character Agnieszka, and she lives in a little village that is basically kind of protected by the dragon, who's like a wizard who lives in this tower, and every 10 years he comes and takes a girl from one of the villages around there to like serve him for 10 years. And everybody knows that at the next round, Agnieszka's friend, Kasia, will be taken. But when the dragon comes, things change, and it's not Kasia that's taken at all. This is a very subtle Beauty and the Beast retelling with a really interesting magical world. It's very immersive. You've definitely got like Grumpy Sunshine with fantasy going on here. I absolutely loved that. I loved the story. I had heard really mixed reviews about it and I went in a little bit nervous. It is a standalone and I do feel like a lot of fantasy standalones can tend to not have the world building that we like in a lot of fantasy, but I feel like this one handled that really, really well. I felt like one book was plenty. I didn't feel like this needed a continuation. I do wish like the romance had a little bit more, but that wasn't the point of the story. Like, this is not a fantasy romance. It is very much a fantasy with a little bit of romance on the side, but I thoroughly enjoyed it and ended up giving this one 4.5 stars as well. Okay, so then the next book that I am technically still reading, but I do have the rest of the day to finish it before the end of the month, and I know I will. I started it this morning and I'm already halfway through. So I am reading Neon Gods, which is by Katie Robert, and this book is a Hades and Persephone retelling. So we have kind of like a modern day world, but Olympus is a city that is very closed off from the rest of the world, and it's very modernized, but like I don't think there's any like magic or anything. Like, it's not a fantasy really. It's technically a Hades and Persephone retelling. It's very much a Hades and Persephone retelling. Like, they're called Hades and Persephone. It's a retelling, but without like the fantasy elements. But we have Persephone, who has just been told that she is engaged to Zeus, who has killed his last 3 wives, and she definitely does not want to marry him, so she ends up fleeing basically for her life and ends up in the lower city where Hades lives, and he kind of takes her in and they strike up a bargain to have him enact the revenge that he wants to enact on Zeus, and also get her what she wants in getting away from Zeus and out of the city. Yeah, so I'm about halfway through. It is not my type of book per se. I'm enjoying it. This book is very little plot, very smutty, very smutty, and very kinky. So it's really not my thing. It's a little bit much for me. I kind of feel like the same way I felt when I was reading Guild, where it was just not enough plot for my tastes and too much weird things. So I'm not loving it, but I'm not hating it either. There are a few little things in here that I'm seeing glimmers of that I'm enjoying a little bit, so we're gonna finish it because we're already halfway, so we might as well. But yeah, I don't know that I'll read the rest of the series. I know that it is a series. I just don't know if all the books are like, is it a true series or are they just like connected? I don't actually know. But I honestly didn't think this was going to be a book that I would pick up, but a coworker let me borrow it, so I thought I would give it a shot. I just don't think it's gonna really truly be a series that I'm going to enjoy. It's a little bit much for me, but we're gonna try it. Okay, so technically that is everything I've read, which is a little bit sad for me. I hope that I read so much more in May, but I do have so many things going on with the end of the school year, and we're about to move, and just so many things are happening. But some of the books that I chose not to read in April I feel like are very telling as well. So I did not end up reading Home Before Dark, which was on my official TBR from my TBR game. I'm just not in the mood for thrillers like at all right now. I don't know why. I've always been a mood reader, but usually I'm kind of in the mood for like a bunch of different things at once, and I've loved thrillers my whole life and I've read so many of them, but I'm just not feeling it right now. So I didn't end up picking this one up at all, and I should have taken a punishment for my May TBR, which I already filmed and posted, but I forgot. So it's okay. Trust me, if you watch the May TBR, it was punishment enough without taking an actual punishment. But I didn't end up picking this up. I don't know when I'll pick it up. I do still want to read it. I'm just not in the mood for it right now. I also did not get to The Prison Healer or The Gilded Cage. These are just the dust jackets because I brought the books on vacation and they're still in my car. I brought them. I didn't read them. I didn't even pick them up, actually. I did, however, on vacation pick up the Night Circus, which I have already returned to the library. I did DNF this book. I just wasn't really enjoying it. This basically follows two magicians that are kind of in like a competition, and they're both like Raising an Apprentice, and there's some sort of competition going on here, but I didn't really know what that was exactly. I didn't get super far into it. I got maybe 75 pages and I just wasn't enjoying it, and I knew that I was hitting a reading slump, and I knew that it was already halfway through the month and I hadn't really read anything else yet, so I ended up just putting it down. I'm pretty sure it's a hard DNF. I don't intend to pick it back up anytime soon, but you never know. Alright, so that was absolutely everything that I read in April, which was not my favorite reading month, but I do have some really exciting plans for May. I have already posted my May TBR, so I will link that down below for y'all to watch if you want to see all of the books that I am reading in May. There are a ridiculous amount. The game was incredibly hectic and very chaotic, but a lot of fun, and I'm really excited for some of these books. So hopefully May ends up being a much better reading month, and I will see y'all in the next video. Bye!